Hello, and welcome to Travel Stories Unpacked, the travel podcast where we talk about all things from the silly to the serious and everywhere in between. I am your host, Ashley Newton, and thanks so much for spending some of your time with me. I really appreciate it. And we are coming to you this week with yet another part 2 episode. We are continuing our conversation about unpacking London with our guest, Melissa Rice. So, Melissa, thanks for sticking around.
Thanks for letting me keep talking.
Yeah, I'm having a blast. And if you haven't watched Melissa's part 1, we'll go ahead and link to that in the description. And really what we talked about there was mainly how this was the first time that you really intentionally set out to have a collaborative family vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So we go all over the details about how you implemented that, some of the highs, some of the learning opportunities that
That's
occurred.
a good way of saying meltdowns and disasters. Nothing was that bad. But yes, they are learning opportunities. And that's what I think. Even once you, maybe not learning in the heat of the moment, in those stressful moments, you just have to get through it.
Right.
But looking back then, okay, what did we learn from this? What can we change so that we hope to avoid this stress in the future?
Yeah. And, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm sure Melissa would be happy to answer some of your questions if this is something you want to do.
Yeah.
So if you're like, oh, this sounds so great, but I'm not really sure how to get it started, drop a comment and we'll happily continue that conversation.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've, been able to picture your vacation in our mind's eye, I really want to get into it. So in part 1, you mentioned that on the first day you got there, you guys wanted to do the walking tour of all the architectural highlights. What else did you guys set out to experience when you were in London?
So what we had talked about in the first episode was that kind of each member of the family, we have some different interests or different things. So we tried to do variety and incorporate. London actually has so much to see and do that even with, we had 4 or 5 days there. Some people try to just stop for a couple days, like before they move on to another part of Europe or before they get on a cruise. And there's just so much. So you really have to prioritize. Even with 4 or 5 days, we couldn't do everything that we might have wanted to do, but we tried to pick our top priorities. So we did the walking tour, architecture of London. It ended up working brilliantly. And yes, I started using the word brilliant after our trip to England. I am also somebody who absorbs accents and vocabulary. So brilliant is now part of my vocabulary. It was brilliant because it was a bank holiday and there was no traffic. All the businesses were closed. It was like our kind of federal holiday.
The fact that you said you absorb accents, we have to take a second to talk about that because I had a previous episode podcast with a wonderful guest who was talking all about Nashville. And I would say half of my focus during that episode was not starting to sort of pick up her speaking patterns and speak back to her that way.
It can almost seem like you're insulting them or making fun of them.
Yeah.
But seriously, there is some kind of brain connection. My husband has called me on it multiple times. I have a friend from Wisconsin or a friend from Canada. And he's like, oh, you come home after a day with her and you're talking all about what you talked about, and he's like, I'm like, I don't know. I just do it on accent. So there were a few words that I picked up. So when I just said brilliant
was one.
Brilliant's one. My friend, she says rubbish all the time.
Oh, rubbish.
Oh, that's just rubbish.
Yeah.
And so they tend to use, even though it's English, they just have a few different words that they sprinkle in.
Yeah.
There. And
so were you able to fight it the whole time or did your accent start to slip out a little?
I didn't, not as much with the accent, but I found myself kind of using their words for things. If I was telling a story that it's not the word I would use, but
put it in the trash would be put it in the bin.
Yeah, exactly. Or I need to use the toilet.
Do they say toilet?
They say toilet, or they might say.
So they don't say loo
washroom.
Anymore. Is that not
a
thing?
They could say loo.
Okay.
But toilet was the one most often.
Toilet sounds so vulgar to me.
To us,
I'm gonna go hit the
talking
toilet.
About exactly. And to them, it's kind of to say bathroom doesn't make sense because you're not bathing.
Yeah.
In it. You don't bathe in the bathroom at a restaurant, right?
Right. No,
so anyway,
yeah, but I'm gonna go to the restroom.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
You would just say, "Oh, I need to use the toilet."
I don't think I could do that.
It is so literal, and yet somehow with a British accent sounds very polite and not as crude as it would have said.
Well, and what do they call the sidewalk? Don't they have a different term for that too?
I don't remember hearing that.
I think sidewalks and then parking lots they call something else.
Instead of garage, it's the garage.
The garage.
And then you would have to have a better accent than I just did that with. Car park, I think they call
car park
instead of parking lot.
And I know
the boot is the trunk of a car,
and over there it's we say take out, but they say take away.
Take away.
Take away. I love it.
So
Just
yeah, I
like
mean,
weird little
as you're going around the
idiosyncrasies.
city, like, and instead of seeing exit signs, it says way out and like an arrow, like way out.
I don't know
And you're
why
like,
that
way out
seems
where?
so much more desperate.
I don't know.
Like
but
exit is
I
just
need-
like you may exit if you like. Way out is like
I need
you
to
must
find a way-
leave.
I don't know. So, but you start to see those things as you go around town. And so one
Yeah.
thing that makes London honestly a really good choice for a first time out of the country, and especially like a first time outside of like a first time to Europe, is even though it's English, like British English, and maybe the accent is different, like the signs are English. So
Yeah.
most of us, unfortunately, in the United States grow up speaking one language. There are very
Right.
few of us, or fewer of us, that are bilingual. So it's more comfortable. It's not as unfamiliar. At least you can read the signs and read the menus and have a general idea of, it's not as overwhelming. And because actually as a teenager, when my family went, my younger brother and I had taken, the typical 2 years of French in high school that really doesn't teach you much, but at least you recognize some
Right.
words. My dad speaks a little German. My mom just felt lost the whole time. So when I took her to London several years later, she's like, well, I still I don't understand a word anyone is saying to me, but at least I can read the signs.
Oh, that is so
anyway.
sweet.
So, but we would, to get around the city. So we had, to get back to our itinerary, we had like the walking tour. We had picked out certain sites or lots of different museums. One of the cool things is a lot of the museums are free.
Did you have a favorite museum?
I can't pick between the British Museum and the RAF, the Royal Air Force Museum. So they both were great in different ways. But navigating is pretty easy. One of the things is to keep in mind, even places that might kind of look close together on a map are not necessarily that close together. So when we were
Yeah.
trying to organize what we were going to do each day, we tried to keep things either in the same general area of the city, or that were at least close to maybe what we would probably call a subway train. They call the tube. And they do actually have underground and they have overground trains.
Yeah.
But somewhere that was close to transportation, so at least it wouldn't take too long to get from one side to the other. It didn't always work out that way. There was a lot of walking, a lot.
Well, and I
of
know you said your
walking.
Airbnb was pretty centrally located to different transportation.
Right.
So
So
that's
we would
nice.
kind of pick whether are we going to take, most of the days we took the train into the city and from there started. Lots of museums. But once again, like the British Museum, it's comparable to the Met in New York
Mhm.
or some of the museums in the Smithsonian. You cannot see everything
Right.
in one day. And especially, it was a week off of school. That was one thing we did not realize. It was their break in between, like they call it
Oh,
half term. So like the middle of the
God.
semester.
Just kids everywhere.
So there were more
And
kids. There were more
families.
families. So some things was great because Monday was a holiday and we were in the business district, mostly looking at buildings and architecture. It was so much less crowded. It was brilliant. But some of the museums and other activities were probably a little bit more crowded because the kids were off school. And some of those
Yeah.
things, I mean, we didn't realize any of that when we booked the dates of our trip. So you just roll with it. But if you're going to go to somewhere like the British Museum or one of the bigger ones, is to at least have somewhat of an idea. Are there a couple of things you really want to see to make sure you see those? Like, because you're not going to just be able to wander through the whole museum or the whole site.
Well, and I'm
So-
guessing when you are going through a museum, you are like truly absorbing it and like maybe reading about the pieces. Like you're not like
So there's a
'Cause when I
difference in
was-
family members for,
Yeah.
some are like, oh, that's cool. And others of us, me, want to read the signs and
Yeah.
find out more about it. So you have to somewhat set your expectations, even as a family or as a group, anytime you're traveling. It's like, how long are we going to plan to spend here? And try to.
When I was visiting, I was definitely very much of that age where like I thought I was into everything, but like, oh my God, the amount of time that my uncle, my oldest cousin, and my grandma would spend reading every little detail, every little plaque, every little thing. It's like, that's a trash can. You don't need to spend 20 minutes reading about it. But like, so my
But
sister
was it
and
a
cousin,
significant trash can?
probably a very historic trash
Winston
can.
Churchill
Like-
threw something away there once, and
No, I mean
it's-
I'm teasing them, but like so then like we would kind of run through it, and then we would sit outside and wait for them playing these stupid little like slap games, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And just like so we did not fully take it in. Did you have to work out with like that pacing? Like, did you?
And that was something we talked about as a family as we were looking at what our choices were. How long did we think we might spend somewhere, and kind of planned accordingly. Tried to make sure that we saw the main things, but we knew, I mean, I could have been in the RAF Museum, the Royal Air Force Museum, longer, although I did get to a point where I'm like, okay, I cannot look at another airplane. But it's very cool, like the history of the Royal Air Force. World War I, World War II history is something that my younger son and I are particularly more interested in. They I learned to focus on, they had these cool little books that were like stories of people. So not just the facts of history, but it was like from this airman, from this factory worker. And so I was like, well, I can learn a lot of this other stuff in books. I like the people stories. So I would just go to each exhibit and at least flip through those. If there was something that I found interesting, I would take a picture of it and think, maybe I'll go back through my pictures and, oh yeah, I wanted to learn more about this story, this person. Now's not the time to do it, because the other two members of my family who were mildly interested in this are not going to be interested for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
So let's be considerate of that. So I don't think anybody made any huge sacrifices or felt miserable any of the time. So I feel like that was a big win for us.
Did you guys do any like royal family stuff?
And so that's something that none of us are particularly interested in. We did walk and see Buckingham Palace from the outside and kind of the surrounding gardens, but none of us cared about the changing of the guard or about going into Windsor Castle or going into. So when it was something that it was like, oh, we should kind of see this because it is like a touristy main site.
Yeah.
We would see it, but not spend a lot of time.
I love that. I love that approach.
Right? And so we didn't feel like we needed to do things just because that's what you have to do when you come to London.
Is Buckingham Palace the one with the guards that people notoriously try to like get them to break position?
I think that is the same.
So you guys didn't go up and take turns as a family trying to get the guards to break?
Sorry. we were respectful Americans at that moment of the trip, I guess.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, we're gonna get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I have another thing that just is very London to me that I did, and I loved it, and that's the double-decker bus.
Anytime we got on a bus, if there was an upper level, that is where I sat.
Okay.
I never got one that was open air on the top.
Oh.
And it just didn't work out, because you can actually, and there are some tours you can do. We did a
tour, yeah.
We didn't end up doing a tour mostly because we had walked so much in the architecture tour. It is a great way, and there are to see the city and to get the lay of the land. They also have, you can do a boat down the Thames River. It's part of the public transportation.
Really?
But you can book a boat tour that's guided, or they do dinner cruises, but for, I think it was maybe £9 or £10, so like $10 to $12. You could go from one end of the river, like the city neighborhood, to the other along the river, which is like a really cool way to get a different perspective of the city. And it's public transportation, so the cost is far less.
Yeah,
it's just one of those like see the sights, but without if you don't need the guided tour part of it, you just want to see it. So
you guys saw some museums, you strolled near the palace.
Yeah, and we saw Westminster Abbey from the outside, St. Paul's Cathedral from the outside.
Yeah.
We did a lot of like parks, and so that's the other thing too, is some of us do like to run around and play, and we have a frisbee with us at almost any time. And
you travel with a frisbee?
We travel with a frisbee.
What is that, like a plastic disc?
Well, we
frisbee?
play ultimate frisbee sometimes. The family.
Do you do the disc golf?
My family has done it. I have not, because Poison Ivy hates me. And
that's more in the woods.
That's in the woods. But we do also sometimes bring a soccer ball. It's more challenging to pack.
For sure.
You can deflate it. You can have it. So we actually bought a soccer ball there to use. But when you're traveling with kids or teenagers with energy.
Soccer, I expect to be a thing that Londoners? Is that what you call Londoners or Europeans in general? That's not out of place for them. Soccer is very popular
except they call
around
it
the
football.
World. Yes.
Yeah.
But frisbee to me seems like, I don't know.
We
had
a great time with our friends from London, like introducing them. They had maybe tossed one around before, but introducing them to that. So it's something that's lightweight and easy to bring with you.
Yeah.
If you want to keep kids busy in the park for a little bit, you can throw it in a backpack.
I just think every American in the world, you hand them a frisbee, they know what to do with it.
And no, they were literally teaching, like, their teenage friends how to throw frisbee
Oh
in the
my
park.
gosh, that's
And we
fun
ended
though.
up giving our frisbee to our friend that we stayed with when we left.
Oh, I love
As
that. Like our
like,
gift to you.
yeah, here's our used frisbee. No, it was, they had
Bit
so
of
much fun
American
playing.
culture for you.
Yeah. Better than a red Solo cup or some tacky like American culture symbol, right? Like,
Active, fit,
so
America.
yeah. We also just did a few kind of we had fun just kind of exploring some too, wandering around in neighborhood, and we did some shopping. My youngest really does like soccer/football. He's gotten
Mhm.
into it more. He has a favorite team. He really wanted to buy a jersey while we were there, and we were trying to find this shop that like specializes in jerseys, and it was in this neighborhood that we probably wouldn't have visited before. My favorite thing about the shop was they had a bar in the shop. I was like, go look for your shirt. Mama's gonna
Okay.
have a Guinness over here while she eats.
Oh,
It
I've heard
was
this too though, that in England the beer is served
not super cold.
just like room temp.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That one definitely was not, which is not unusual. And it wasn't actually a Guinness, it was a stout, but it was that type of
Yeah.
beer. And the other pub that we went to, I don't know that it was like totally room temperature, but it definitely was not. We're into cold drinks. And actually,
Yeah.
that became a joke in our family. We knew when we were in a more touristy restaurant when they brought like a pitcher of water or served us water and there were ice cubes in it. And
Yeah.
my son would get like really excited. He's like, yes, ice. So it's just a preference, right? They're
Right.
like, what is your obsession with freezing beverages? And I'm like, well, that's what tastes good to us because it's what we're used to drinking. So,
Yeah. Well, and I'm all
yeah.
for like, assimilate to the culture that you're in, but I'm sorry, warm beer is a crime. That is an absolute crime. And just try it cold. Ease yourself up there. Let me know if you
Well, you
come to
can
our
go. We
side.
did buy a lot of groceries, and actually, grocery shopping in a foreign country is one of my favorite ways to like explore the culture.
Yeah,
I
for
don't.
sure.
So, you can buy beer and you can stick it in your fridge in your Airbnb or in even your hotel if you have like a mini fridge or whatever, and you can make it cold that way too.
Yeah.
So.
But it's just one of those things that like I'm always curious what is actually real and what's just like stuff you hear
No,
on the internet.
it's very true that I think it's more normal for it not to be
Yeah.
cold or to be even room temperature, especially a thicker, darker, heavier beer like that.
The ones you want the most cold, in my opinion. Like, no, it's got to be cold. I even have a friend here who, like, she'll come over and she just always leaves her beers on the counter because she likes them warm. And I judge her for that too. Like, that's just wrong. You're doing
Do you
it
judge her
wrong.
silently or out loud?
Oh,
'Cause
out loud all the
okay.
time. I'm like, dude, this is weird, but thanks for saving me room in the fridge. Like, whatever. But were there any touristy things that you avoided? Like, that you just for sure knew you didn't even want to walk by, not worth your time?
We didn't do like the London Eye.
Do they
the big-
still have that? I thought I saw they were
Absolutely.
taking that down.
No, it's
It's
still
up and
there.
running?
That was one of those things. The price, especially when you start adding up 4 tickets, the price that you were going to pay to be in this kind of like enclosed glass capsule
Yeah.
with other strangers and go like around to see. It's one of those things like, we'll save that money and we'll do something else that we really feel like doing. We saw it because it was right next to the aquarium that we did pay to go into.
Okay.
Which was one of my oldest. Like, he loves sharks in particular, and he had read that they had X amount of like shark species in this aquarium, and they have one of the tunnels that you can walk through. And it wouldn't have been my choice of what to do while we were in London, but
Mhm.
it was one of the things he wanted to do, and it actually ended up being really cool. We all really enjoyed it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I enjoyed it far more than I thought. And we also got a discount because I was like, look up tickets and how to buy tickets. And here's another learning experience
Yeah.
with kids. And he just goes to the museum site and says, okay, it costs this much per person. And here's how because you have to book like timed tickets for that.
Okay.
I said, okay, did you look for any discounts? No, not really. You go and you Google discounts for the London Sea Life Aquarium. And sure enough, half price tickets for students. We saved like $45 by just putting, so once again, a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and I would just say that for anything there, search for discount code, search for youth discounts, student discounts. My youngest could get a different pass for the transportation. You had to buy the card and you went to the train station, and it's like 16 and under, and he could ride the bus for free and his train, and that was like half price. And all you have to do is go in and say, can you put the student discount on this card? So like if you're before you travel is the best time to do that, is to just kind of,
Yeah,
why
you're not
spend money
gonna
that you don't have to spend? Yeah, I mean,
absolutely, and you're not gonna be thinking of that stuff in the moment, so definitely
or
make
you're gonna
it
take time away from your trip figuring it out while you're there.
yeah, at least if
So
it's me, I budget so much leading up to it, but as soon as I'm in destination, money is just a concept, and you
yeah.
can anything I wanna do, Imma do it,
I
and
feel
swipe, swipe,
like we
swipe.
can't even get into that because that would be a whole other part of this trip.
Yes,
Was us
yes.
we did some kind of different things to save for the trip and budget and to try to avoid the stress during the trip of how much money is this costing because things in a big city like that are expensive.
Okay, so we won't get
Yeah.
into it too much because I still
So
wanna get into, like, food and
which
stuff.
is part of the big
Yeah,
expense while you're traveling because
but
you can prepay for lodging and things, but
yeah, in general,
yeah.
though, did you find that prices for just, like, activities, drinks, food, was it on par with, like, major touristy spots? Was it, like, a little cheaper, a little more expensive?
Um, I mean, free museums, free activities, those kinds of things are great, but I feel like lots of big cities have that. You know,
Yeah,
they have
for
some
sure.
things that are free that are community
You gotta
based,
do
that
your
are
research,
libraries,
figure it
if
out.
but those are the things that typically are harder to find out about.
Mhm.
Restaurant food was pricey. I will say we don't eat out a lot here in
Okay,
the
so maybe
Midwest
not the
where we
best
live, so
barometer.
I'm probably even more sensitive to that, but it was pricey and also, like, smaller portions and not necessarily, like, super good quality. So you feel like, "Okay, if I'm going to pay more, it should be one of those things," right? And it was
Yeah.
just kind of like, "We're paying more for not getting very much food," that really most of the meals were like, "Eh," it was food.
Yeah, alright, so we gotta
So
get into it
but
because
groceries were a lot of things were less. I was actually surprised that the produce prices to me seemed more reasonable than what we pay in our grocery stores here in the Midwest. And we were shopping in these little like convenience grocery stores
yeah.
downtown. So yeah, that was one surprise. I was like, oh, our money went a little farther when it came because we would buy stuff for breakfast or snack things or
So you did
yeah.
definitely save money doing
We
the
saved
meals
money and
yourself.
we started trying to figure out a lot of restaurants would have like a lunch special. That was a way to kind of get a little better bang for your buck. Or we would go to some of the open air markets, which was a whole other adventure.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I wanna talk
yeah,
about the food
yeah.
because I feel like that is one of those really big stereotypes that England and London just has going against it, I guess, is that, like, the food just gets dragged for being bland, kind of flavorless, maybe just not good all around, so what were your thoughts?
I'm always said if you can't say something nice, don't say. No, I'm just kidding. I am one to try not to be limited by stereotypes, right? I want to have an open mind.
Yeah.
I have to say, the food was not really a highlight of our trip at all. It wasn't terrible, but we had to we had to look for food options that had more flavor. Things just seemed a little bit more bland to us in general.
Yeah.
Even when we ate at a restaurant, like we ate at an Indian restaurant, and the portions were good at that one, and we were a little farther outside of the city. But it was like all of the flavor, the spice level, not just spiciness, but like the actual spices was like
Yeah.
toned down. And I don't know if that was a typical like, oh, it's Indian food for Londoners, not
Right,
for
right, that's what I'm
and
wondering.
that's we were like, oh, it just needed something. Like it needed a kick of something fresh or
Yeah.
we did have fish and chips.
Okay.
The first night we were there, and it was actually our anniversary that day we got there. My husband's like, we could go out. And I'm like, I'm so tired. We just flew all night. We got takeaway fish and chips and ate in our pajamas in our apartment, and it was perfect.
Honestly, that sounds so good.
So, and that was good, but
Yeah.
you can't, like, we are not people who are going to eat fried beige food the whole time
Of
either,
course,
right?
yeah.
And it was good for that night.
So fish and
But
chips
fish and
feels
chips
like
was
a
good, but I would
classic staple.
mhm.
Another thing I think of is like a traditional English breakfast, which I think they call it a fry up. Is that right?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't hear that. But English breakfast, and so our friends actually made that when we stayed with them. And
Well, we can't bash their home cooking.
no, and it was I mean, and a lot of it, I mean, it was toast. They do eat beans
on the
on
toast,
the
right?
toast, which
So did you try that?
yeah, I see. I eating beans for breakfast is not weird for me, having been in like Mexican
Okay,
and
yeah.
or South American cultures. Like, it is more like baked beans.
For sure.
So, but I don't have a problem with that.
I have a problem with I have
yeah,
so many
I don't like
problems
the
with
beans
it.
on the toast because it makes the toast soggy, but I would eat
Right.
it with the toast.
Why would you do that to toast? Honestly, why would you do it to
Poor
beans? It's
toast.
so mean. The
But that
texture
was
is
like,
awful.
she did, like ham and eggs and stuff
Yeah.
fried up and fine, like good. We
Is there-
drank tea. I drank more tea there. I'm normally a coffee drinker.
Okay, so
And-
talk about the tea in London.
So
Or I'm sorry, talk about the coffee in London.
There is still like a coffee culture.
Okay.
And there are coffee shops. There are specialty coffees. There are like, it's not hard to find coffee. Our Airbnb rental had actually like a nice Nespresso coffee machine and an electric kettle, and it had tea bags and coffee bags, or coffee pods kind of things. The friends we stayed with, they did not have a coffee maker, but they had instant coffee.
Which I had to ask what instant coffee was. I don't drink coffee, so I was like, isn't all coffee like instant
Picture like making
coffee?
chocolate milk, but with coffee.
Yeah,
like
so you just stir it in, but you don't filter it or anything.
No, it dissolves like in the cup. And that can be okay. I actually carry like individual packets of instant espresso with me when I travel anyway. So I have that as a backup. But they have a lot of different kinds of tea. They have places you can go, you can get your own tea blend mixed. And the one souvenir that my husband wanted, he wanted to buy some tea. So we bought like a few different kinds of loose leaf tea to bring home. So
coffee is available, but tea is definitely still the prevailing beverage
and it's
of
the
choice.
more traditional beverage. Yeah. But there's definitely coffee shops and specialty coffees and things.
So what about like really Americanized foods? Did you guys see any of that over there? Like, was there a place that you could get like just burgers or?
So one of our favorite meals was this kind of like diner place that had a burger special for lunch and curly fries and a drink. And it was just one of the only places that we got a decent amount of food for a pretty good price. So I think for my teenage children, they were happy to just have like a big plate of food.
Yeah.
It was not the best burger ever, but it was decent.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a place that catered to Americans. They actually had other lunch options. We just all ended up ordering burgers and fries. This was like 5 days into the trip.
Yeah.
I do regret I never went into a McDonald's because I do like to go into a McDonald's in a foreign country and just see what's different. And I never set foot in there. They have a different chain called Greg's. That's the
sausage roll place.
Yes.
Did you get one?
We did. My husband actually got a vegan sausage roll. That is another thing there. There were lots of vegan options, food allergies, stuff super well labeled.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Even one of the other fancier Indian restaurants, they had vegan yogurt available to do some of the normal creamy dishes. They could do a vegan option. So traveling, my older son has food allergies. He's allergic to dairy and peanuts. And it was super easy there to find options. There's just an awareness that some countries don't have, but it was definitely
that's great.
there. I don't even know how I got on this whole spiel. We were talking
about Greg's and their sausage rolls.
So yes, that, and they had just like take out little chicken fingers, and they have pastries, they have coffee, and it was one of those we needed something to eat in between breakfast and lunch, and we hopped in there, and it was perfect. So
yeah.
It's just fun to kind of explore those little places. And like at the grocery store, actually one of my favorite things I ate was the grocery store around the corner from us had this Mediterranean flatbread, and they had hummus and some kind of red pepper spread and that was like our snack every night, and it was just from the corner convenience store.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to find. And none of us starved, but I think there's definitely good food to be found. Some of like I mentioned, the markets can be really hectic. We realized as a family that that was one of my things I wanted to do. I want to go to Borough Market, and I want to see all the food stalls, and we quickly just became overwhelmed with the amount of choices and the noise and the amount of people.
I get that.
And it turned out to be not fun for any of us. Like we did eat a few things. We're like, we have to get out of here. Like this is just too much.
And I think when you were talking, I may have been in part one, but just about like learning from your own experiences as a kid and trying to, have your own travel style moving forward. I feel like that is something that is super important to me, and something I still work on and try to get better at is improvising the plan, letting it go, acknowledging this isn't working, nobody's having a good time, like, or being the one that's willing to speak up. If you can read the room and be like, you guys just want to go?
Yeah, we don't have to stay here. Nobody's worried. I'm okay. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's great. Any other sort of closing advice you have for people that might be looking to visit London for the first time?
Oh, there's so much. Do as much research as you can ahead of time. we ran into a few little issues with credit cards being accepted. That was one thing. And like foreign credit cards, we were trying to use a card that didn't have like a foreign transaction fee. And then using the public transportation, they have a lot of really nice contactless options, but you have to have a different card for each person. Otherwise, it can't handle like the swiping in and swiping out. So like trying to think through the process before you go, and if there's something you don't understand, like I spent a lot of time kind of our first day like Googling and researching and then asking at the train station, figuring things out. If
Also
food's
sounds
important,
like you could use a travel agent to help you navigate through that.
some of those little things that would be time savers. If food is important to you, I would look up specific places to go. I think there is good food there. I wouldn't just be like, oh, you can pop in almost anywhere and just get good food. Bakery stuff, yes. Desserts, pastries, yeah, but
so if
so
it's
a lot of
fried
it-
or if it's sugar, you're safe.
yeah,
Everything
which I
else-
really don't mind, but after a few days of that, you need some veg.
Yeah.
Veg.
yeah, something just less
Yeah.
processed and
Yeah.
more immediate energy.
Oh my goodness, my mind is blank because I have so many tips of things.
Well, no, that's
too.
why we ask people to
Yeah.
comment. Ask us your questions, and then we can answer them there. But
And I think this goes for any destination, is any chance that you get to interact with someone who lives there, to learn more about their culture, and to not go into it, well, this is our way of doing it, so this is the right way, but just be willing to learn what is their way. How do they say things? There were definite like, not culture shock, but like,
well, I know we talked about some of the like nomenclature and like words for
different
things.
vocabulary, expressions, even things like and maybe it's more of a Midwest thing, I don't know. Hi, how are you? Like greeting. That is just kind of like, whoa, like this person isn't. That's a lot of emotion to be showing to a stranger, and we're like, that's not emotion. I'm just being friendly.
Well,
and
I don't know if that's like a London thing, but I've heard in general for like Europeans, it doesn't seem genuine to them. Like they just think that Americans are like putting on a front and being very fake.
Like, no,
but also it's like, I'm on vacation. I'm having the best time.
And as Americans, we tend to be louder. Yeah. We've talked about this on other episodes. We are louder, and that is not something that they're used to. Although getting to know some friends there, they said that some of that is what they enjoy. They do like that. We like getting to know us, like, oh, we think it's good to be a little bit more emotional or a little bit more enthusiastic. I think just on the street as strangers, it seems a little bit like in your face for them. The accent can be tricky, and there's different British accents depending on where you're from.
Can you give me your best British accent?
Oh no,
I'll do it if you do it.
Oh, you got to give me something to say.
I was gonna say I'll do the show intro because that comes naturally, but what is something that comes naturally for you? Like, what's an order that you place all the time, like at a restaurant or something?
Could I have a cappuccino, please?
I feel like that was good.
But
I mean, I'm not British,
it's just a spot of milk. Like, like you have
a spot of
just
milk.
A spot of milk. Like
I
need to go watch like a few Downton Abbey episodes, and then I'll just absorb the accent and they have a very posh accent.
Yes. I can't do any of the other regions, and I can't do any of them. Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah.
But I can try
accent,
posh.
Because my younger son does like a Michael Caine accent, which is like a Cockney accent, and he does it really well. I think
does he?
You need to have him on and be like, he doesn't like to do it on demand. He's like me though, but his accents are his impressions are much better.
Anytime I think I'm about to do it though, I like go into a white hot panic, and I'm like, I can't do anything. But I want to try. I want to try.
Okay.
Wait, oh my gosh, how do you even do it? I can't do it. I can't think of any. Say something British. Okay, I'm just gonna try. No, I can't. I cannot make my mouth do it. I'll see if I can do it at the end.
It would be brilliant if we could go to the park today. Should we take the tube or should we call a taxi? How about an Uber? Now I just went to like, I don't even know. That was like a mix of accents.
No, and I feel like normally it's pretty easy for me to get into an accent, but I got this mental block about it, and I just thought, I don't want to embarrass myself on the airwaves. But
sometimes we just have to let it go,
You
Ashley.
do. You got to let it
just
go.
Throw those inhibitions in the rubbish.
Absolutely. I'm going to go get some takeaway tonight and just lounge about. Okay, that's it. That got weird. But let us know how we did on our accents. And
or not. I'll answer other travel questions, but opinions on the accent are.
So would you ever want to go back now that you're back home?
I would.
I know you said you're not a big repeater.
I'm not a big repeater.
Yeah.
There's a few things that we either didn't get to see or maybe like outside the city we didn't take the time to go to. But I think there's other parts of even the UK that I've never been to Ireland. Or
I am planning an
Scotland.
Ireland trip and I'm so excited.
So I think if I was gonna fly that far again,
yeah,
in the UK, that's probably where I would go.
Awesome. Well, I am gonna encourage you to do that and then come back on the show and talk to me all about it.
Okay. Are you paying?
Gosh, I wish. We should start a little like send us places.
Yeah.
And then we'll come tell you about it. You'd pay for that, right? I'm just kidding.
Go fund us.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, Melissa, thank you again for coming on and talking about your travels, the good, the food, and everything in between.
Did you just put that where the bad and the ugly would have gone? I think you did.
Maybe.
Anyway.
But no hate, you know.
No, I think some of the fun of traveling is not just the travel; it's the reliving the memories and the sharing those experiences with others, and then some things that weren't funny at the time become funny later once you can finally laugh at them.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
So it's always like having this opportunity to kind of share some of those experiences, and I love to read some questions or comments.
Yeah, or start a thread of all of the good places to eat in London. And then we can have our own
for London.
travel guide of the places that are worth it for you. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope that you felt like you traveled to London with us today. And I hope that you keep tuning in on Fridays where we're going to bring you new stories, new opinions, and all things travel. Don't forget to share your thoughts with us in the comments or anywhere on social media using our hashtag #TravelStoriesUnpacked. This podcast is brought to you by KHM Travel Group, a leading host agency for independent travel agents. Please visit khmtravel.com to learn more.